You're listening to the Modern People Leader podcast, where we go behind the scenes with today's top HR leaders and work experts. We talk to them about how they've gotten to where they're at, what they do every day, and what they see coming next for the future of work. Hope you enjoy. How have you been?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
I should have went and looked at the date before we hit record, but it's been at least like a year and a half. Is that right?
Gosh, that long? It
It's
feels
crazy.
like 8 months ago, not a year and a half ago. That seems like a long time ago.
What do you think, Stephen? What's your guess?
Well, I'm cheating because
Uh-oh.
I can tell you exactly November 6, 2023. So
Oh my God. So
Yeah.
about a year and a half.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were right, Daniel. Oh my gosh. Time flies when you're
Crazy.
having fun.
I probably checked a few months ago, and so subconsciously maybe I was cheating as well, but it's been a long time. And I feel like there are a lot of updates for all of us, which I'm excited to catch up on. And so on that note, I'd like to get us into good news stories. As a quick refresher, good news stories is the way we start every episode, and it can be a personal story, it could be a work-related story, just anything that's coming to mind for you.
So, good news story is I spent the entire weekend with my grandbabies and my children. So, I had all three kids with me, my two grandbabies with me, my daughters in law, and we celebrated my grandson's first birthday. And today is his actual birthday. So, he's an April Fool's baby. He was a 10-pounder, and he's just amazing. He goes with the flow. Like, I would have a 10-pound baby if they were that happy. I think it's worth it. He is the happiest kid ever.
That's so cute. I can go next, and I'll let you finish this off, Stephen. So this weekend is baby Lena's baby shower. So I'm expecting my first child in like 6 weeks. So 6 weeks exactly, actually. And we're doing a couples baby shower this weekend. So we opened it up to everybody. And so far we have 108 people that have RSVP'd. And
Wow.
I know my wife was like, please don't share that on the podcast because that's embarrassing. That's almost as many people as we had at our wedding. But I mean, I feel like that in itself is the good news. Like we have that many people that care about us, that want to be a part of baby Lena's life. And we have some people flying in. We have, people driving in from across the state. And we've already gotten so many amazing gifts for Lena. And yeah, I'm just so thankful to have such a big community around me. And I don't know how people do this without that because I already know it's going to be hard and I haven't even started yet. And yeah, babies are also expensive. And so it's nice to have like new items arriving at the house like every day. I feel way more prepared.
That's awesome.
To build, that is awesome and not surprising that 108 people have RSVP'd. And it also makes me feel less bad because we are two of those, my fiance and I, well, four, because we have our daughters this weekend and we have to leave early. So I was like, I think it'll be fine. There's going to be a lot of friends there. And now I know there's going to be a lot of friends there. So super excited about baby Lena's shower. I'll go. Okay, good. So Going into 2025, I decided to double down on tennis, and I've watched a lot of videos, a lot of YouTubes, like footwork drills. I learned about things like eye dominance and all that to just get better. And my goal is to enter a competition. There's all these like ladder competitions. And my good news is this past weekend, I played with one of the guys that I started playing with early on, and he would consistently whoop me. Like it wasn't even close. And we played singles on Sunday, and let's just say I had a convincing win. So I'm ready. I'm officially ready for my next stage, and that is to start joining these competitions. So I am super excited about that. And it's been a lot of fun. I just really enjoy playing tennis. It's nice to get out there. We've had you on the show before, Pat. And so my favorite question we've already asked you before, and that is our Brene Brown question. Like, tell us your story. What's your journey been? And since we've been through that, we thought that it would be good to just get a catch up on your journey over the last 18 months. So it's been a while since we've last had you on the show. You've made some moves, new jobs, working on some side projects. So tell us, get us caught
Published a
up.
book.
Yeah, what have you been up to?
We've had a lot of chief people officers come onto the show. And if there's one thing that they have in common, it's that they run their org their way. I think of people like Crystal Boyson at Sprout Social, who completely rethought performance reviews for her company, ditched long form questions, created 3 clear ratings, which they then can auto calculate into a final rating. I think of Carmel Galvin from Clavio, who ditched the generic way of measuring quality of hire and built a custom framework tailored to each team. I think of Jessica Zvan, who tracks LTV to ECAC to evaluate every single manager. Like, these are the exact kinds of people leaders who wish they had a tool like ChartHop. And for those of you who aren't familiar with ChartHop, ChartHop is a flexible people ops platform and HRIS that brings in all of your people and business data into one place. So think, HRIS plus having the ability to bring in data from places like Salesforce. And they let you customize key processes like headcount planning, compensation, performance, and engagement exactly the way that you want it. No rigid templates, no one-size-fits-all playbook, just the flexibility to build the systems that you truly believe in. With ChartHop, you can really run your org your way. If their platform sounds like something that you want to learn more about, I highly recommend that you go request a demo. Just go to charthop.com and make sure to let them know that we sent you.
So I think my two highlights. One is I'm an accidental author, as y'all just noted. So my book launched, Unlock Your Leadership Story. It launched October 29th in 2024. I can't believe it launched. I think I signed my contract with Wiley right when I did my last podcast with y'all, because I signed it Thanksgiving week of 23.
Okay.
And they asked me, like, how quick can you do the book? And we agreed to, like, the book is written. I got them for whatever reason to agree to the premise of the book. It's leadership stories leveraging fables and folktales. So how do you become your best self? How do you lead others leveraging the moral lessons embedded in all the famous heartwarming fables that we all love? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. And they were like, how long will it take you to write it? And I'm like, I don't know. I've never written a book. And so I reverse engineered, I thought like a chapter a week. And I'm like, all right, April 1st, I'll have my book done. And then I'm like, no, I got panicked. And I said, no, give me 2 more weeks, April 15th. And so I submitted my manuscript April 15th. They reviewed it. A good friend of mine is the illustrator, Darren Caddis. So he did original drawings for every chapter. And it got launched. And so that to me is like, I still pinch myself. I can't believe, as an introvert, as someone that never thought to write a book, that there's something tangible out there with my name on it and has personal stories in it and my faubles and my learnings and all that. So that's cool. And then in the midst of all that, April 1st being like a pivotal point when my grandson was born, my oldest son knows about my personal scorecard. That's one of the stories I tell in the book. And in the scorecard, I said I was going to see my granddaughter at least once a quarter. Like, that was my commitment, because I was traveling so much in my prior gig. And so I'm holding Emmett in my arms. I'm crying. I'm so happy for the moment. And my son goes, Mom, if you live by your scorecard, you will have met Emmett and Everly 74 times by the time they're 18. And I'm like, no. So, like, that's not my scorecard. It's not what I wanted. I wanted a relationship with my grandkids where they go, Nana, 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 run to me and tell me stories and sit on my lap and fall asleep on me. And so that prompted me to pick my head up and realize I wasn't living my best life, most balanced, family-oriented life that I wanted. And I had an opportunity to make a move. There was leadership change at UKG. It seemed like a nice time frame to do a pivot. And now I am at Intuitive. They do the Da Vinci robot, which I've also been a patient of, so it's near and dear to my heart. Both boys live in Burlingame in Northern California, and they found me an apartment a mile away from their house. And so now when I travel up every week to Intuitive, I have dinner with the family, and I have Nana, and I have those moments with the grandkids. So that is my best life in the last 18 months.
I love that. And yeah, I mean, the joy of being a grandparent. So my mom and dad, they bought a condo in Dallas when my brother had his first child, like maybe 4 years ago. Yeah, 4 years ago. And yeah, there's nothing they love more than being in Dallas, spending time with the grandbabies. And now for my wife, who is an only child, this will be their first grandbaby. They're already looking at apartments and condos in Austin so they can drive in like at least once a month. And so, yeah,
You get it.
I
You
definitely get it. I definitely get it. And so you mentioned the move to intuitive. What, aside from being able to spend more time with your family, like what else drew you in? Was there a specific challenge that the company was going through that?
Yeah, there was a few things. So when I think about making the leap, I had like this target. I want to get up every day being purpose driven. I love what I get to do in my craft, and I want to leave the world better than I found it. And so if I can do it not only in the company I serve, but the company serving others, like this ripple effect, like I'm all in. So I was looking for a purpose driven organization. I've been associated with healthcare throughout my career, either nonprofit board work. I was on the board of a hospital network, a public company. So being in a healthcare kind of like it hit my soul in a really good way. And they're high growth, they're global, they have an amazing product, and the leadership team I fell in love with. Like, so I'll say, but I interview, when I talk to people and I go in the hallways, I want to fall in love with the employees. I want to feel the nurturing vibe inside me, like, oh, I want to care for you. I think I can help you. I think I make this place even better if I join. And so I need to feel that pull and their willingness to dance with me. I look for a dance partner. And a dance partner for me is someone that will get into the conversation, the debate. So Daniel, you'll have a point of view, I'll have one, and Steve will have another one. And the outcome is greater because the three of us came together, not better than the sum, right? It's not just 3 points, it's like 5 point better. And if you can dance like that, magic happens. And normally I get one or two of those leaders in a company that I'm like, oh, that's my dance partner. I have like 7 here. Like I've never had that many in my career. Like every time I'd interview, I'm like, oh, you could be a dance partner. Oh my gosh, you could be a dance partner. And they are amazing. So I'm like, this is a really cool gig.
That's awesome. We've known each other for a while now, and when I look back at the organizations you've been at, they were going through change, or they were scaling quickly, or they were nearing an inflection point. And so would you say that it's accurate that you enjoy coming into companies that are growing or have some major kind of initiative coming, looming around the corner, but they don't quite have everything in place yet? Would you agree
Yeah,
with that?
that's my sweet spot. I am not a maintenance person. So it's like scale, it's the challenge, it's going global, it's a big merger, it's culture shift. Like those things to me get my juices flowing, my creativity, because there's not one pattern, right? There's not like, here's what I did at company X and I just apply it here. Like I change industries when I transition jobs because I want to keep my mind fresh. I fear that I'm going to repeat something, either repeat the same mistakes I've made, which gosh, I don't want to do that. And I stop being creative, which would be boring. So throwing myself into these challenges feeds my soul and it keeps me energized.
I really relate to that. And so I'm curious about the next question, because I know there had to be something. Pat Wadors, you it's not like you have limited options, someone like you, a leader like you with the track record. And so give us the 30-second commercial on what Intuitive does, and what was it? Tell us, and in particular, I want to learn more about this Da Vinci system that you mentioned that you've used.
All right. So that question is why I joined Intuitive. It is the most amazing organization. We're an N of one of a SaaS or MedTech company that has grown organically to over 9 billion in revenue. Organic, so not a single acquisition of innovation. I'll let this just pause for a moment.
9 billion. That wasn't
9 billion with a B. And they are a little over 15,000 employees globally. They've done acquisitions of distributor channels, but not of technology, not of innovation in a meaningful way at all. So this N of one is exciting to me. Then you think about scale. They've been doubling in size every 4 to 5 years. And so you go through these normal growing pains, life cycle of a company. And now, if you think about our scale and where we are today, these leaders that have been in play for 15, 20 some odd years, they have learned to harness what people would say is a player coach leadership style. Are y'all familiar with that? The player coach?
Mhm.
Yes?
I think so, but give me a quick refresher.
All right. A player coach is, and normally you would find it of engineering or a product side where you would actually go in to do the code a little bit. You'd actually get dirty in the product. And then in my language, you'd porpoise back up and lead the team and the strategy and the budget and the vision. And so these leaders play in the product, they play in the lab, they meet with customers, they're patient focused, they go in the region, they figure out the nuance, the problem, and then they porpoise back up and say, how do we drive the business? So they do this really extremely well. But to do that at scale, when you're smaller, it's easy. But when you go bigger and bigger, then you have to be really strategic in how you think through the processes, the org design, the expectations of leadership, from hiring from the outside, developing from the inside to maintain the ability and the skill set to porpoise. Because if you're only leading through others and you're only leading through data, you're going to miss something in the innovation. So I have a unique opportunity now to think through this player coach at scale in a way that traditional companies would look at increasing span of control, reducing layers. The normal metrics won't apply here. So now I got a new problem. So happy me. The product side that gets me stoked. So Da Vinci, back in 2019, I needed a hysterectomy. I had a problem and the doctor was like, you need this surgery and I'm going to do a robotic surgery. And I just cared. I wanted to get healthy. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And I wasn't thinking when she said robotic, I literally was not thinking. I get wheeled in the OR and there is the Borg. It's like these four arms, like this machine against the wall. And it's like all really cool, all wrapped in plastic. And then there's the gaming console that I called it against the other side of the wall. She goes, that's where I will be moving the robot and the robot will do the surgery. And I'm like, oh my gosh, the robot is going to cut into my body? She's like, yeah. And so it is the most minimally invasive approach to surgery that helps the patient heal faster and helps the body with less trauma. And I was able to get up and walk that day. It's the most advanced. Wow. It's incredible. And now they have digital, like AI on top of this Da Vinci. They did the Da Vinci 5 last year. And it will give signals to surgeons on the force feedback, like how much force they're giving to the tissue, to the area of the patient, so they know if they're doing more damage or less damage. It will replay through the microscope and the camera how you do your surgery, so it gives you instant feedback to the surgeon. And you could do telepresence. So if you two are in different states and Steven's doing a surgery, you can dial a friend Daniel and say, Daniel, I'm in the colon. I'm confused about what I'm seeing. It's more complex. And you check out what I'm seeing and you can log into my actual surgery through the camera that I'm seeing and give Steven guidance on his surgery. And you could actually take over the surgery if you're the expert. If you say, look, give me control of the surgery, I'll help you with your patient. And you get to a console and you actually run the surgery. So you can have health equity anywhere around the world through this robotic opportunity.
Is it just hysterectomies or are there dozens of cases?
Yeah, gallbladder. They have an ion. So I'm so excited about this. They can do like a catheter that can go into your lungs. And they can, through the camera and through the biopsy, they can determine if that little brown black spot that you have in your lungs is cancerous or not. And right now, usually you get diagnosed almost at stage 4 lung cancer because no one wants to come in and do open lung surgery, take a piece of your lung out just to see if it's cancerous. That's huge trauma. But now you take this catheter, through the inside of the body, not disrupting, not cutting in. You can see the area. You have this little catheter with like these little probes that come out, cut a piece of the tissue, pulls it back through the catheter so the catheter stays in your lung. You can test it for cancerous cells while you're under anesthesia. If you have cancer, they can go and actually remove the part of the lung node and start treating you for cancer right there on the spot. So you can get diagnosed in stage 1 lung cancer. 30% of stage 1 lung cancers are being diagnosed through ion today.
This is wild. Here I am thinking about a Starbucks spot that can make me whatever drink I want without having to wait. And like, this is way, way more impactful. And to your point, purpose driven. This is amazing. And all of this kind of flying under the radar.
That's the point. Right? No one knows. So I'm like, when I went to ServiceNow, no one knew what ServiceNow did. So when I left LinkedIn, they're like, you're going to help desk company? And I'm like, oh no, you have no idea what this company is about. I feel the same way about Intuitive.
That's exciting. And so something you mentioned was this player coach model at scale. And something that we heard in our prep call with you was that there's some culture work being done. You have two very different cultures that you're trying to mesh. And so I'm curious how those two things play into one another, or if they don't. So are you thinking of this culture work all as like one body of work, both player coach at scale and meshing these two different cultures? Or how are you thinking about that?
I think it's the same body of work. It's polishing the apple. So whenever you do culture work, there are elements, there are gold nuggets in your organization that represent your culture. And you have to amplify those gold nuggets. They're the gold nuggets that the employees trust and feel every day. And if you're emphasizing a gold nugget that they don't see or understand, it'll be non-trusted, right? So if you talk about in an organization that quality is your number one care, and yet when you work in the organization, you have safety issues left and right, that's a culture problem. At Intuitive, what I need to do is just harness the origin story of Intuitive. What makes you thrive at Intuitive? Why come? Why is the purpose so impactful? What gives you the sense of pride? And it's a very humble organization because they're patient first in everything that they do. And then globally, as you span out, you got to make sure your language resonates, right? And they see themselves fitting into the purpose. So what's happening in China versus Japan versus India versus Malaysia versus Bulgaria, right? Each country, as you expand, if you're not careful, they'll create many subcultures. That new leadership team, if you're hiring on local, they don't really know what the broader Intuitive family looks like, from a culture standpoint, those tenants. And so doing culture work is really like grabbing the nuggets, validating they're real, looking for the test points, globalizing the language, and then embedding it in your DNA. How you court talent globally, localize it, onboard it, develop it, reinforce it in performance reviews, how you promote. Every echo should reinforce your culture. And that's the work that's coming up.
I love this topic, and I've been giddy the last few podcast recordings we've done because they're like things that like in the circle of things Stephen loves about the people space, and having run an engagement survey company for 9 years, almost a decade, I learned a little about culture. And one of the top three, I'm a big believer that with data, particularly in the people space, I just posted about it today on LinkedIn. We have a tendency as people, I won't say tendency, but we can sometimes fall in the trap of overcomplicating things. And I believe that there are like three big issues. Like when you look at your engagement data, it usually boils down to kind of three or four big things. One of the things is us versus them, the us versus them dynamic. And that can happen when, you've gone through an acquisition. That can happen when you suddenly innovate your product or you change the direction of where you're going. Or it can happen in
New
the
generation entering the workforce.
new generation or pre-COVID. A big one was your remote employees, right? Because remote has always existed in almost every single survey. It's like, oh, EMPS for remote employees is lower. And when you look at the feedback, it was always like, oh, well, it's like you talk about this one experience that some people get to have, and then like everyone else just doesn't get to experience that. And it's like, again, us versus them. And so can you paint a picture for us of do you relate to that at all? And what did it look like when you came in? Like, how did you start to gain that picture of like, okay, this really does need to be a priority? Was that something known by the leadership team, or, was that influenced by you? Tell us a little bit about how you even got to the initiative.
So I think every time I walk into an org, I call it touch the elephant, right? Depending on what part of the elephant you're touching, you think it's something else, right? So if I'm an engineer, I see the world through this lens. If I'm in sales, I think of it in that lens. I also think of the employee value proposition as almost like a tech stack, right? So the platform play is those things that are globally true, right? We have global ERP systems. Your center of truth will be on this HCM tool. This is our finance tool. This is how we think about our purpose as a company, so on and so forth. Then you have what I call the middleware. Every company I've been in, I don't know about y'all, but every company I've been in has a different comp plan for sales versus non-commission based employees. That's a middleware. Like you're intentionally redesigning a different incentive plan for a different type of beast, right? You have the same middleware, right? I'm calling it, for the regions, right? So you have allowances in India, you have a different allowance framework in France, you have a different culture in Japan or say China, how you court talent, how you pay them. That's your middleware, but it's designed intentionally. So here's my different flavors. And then you have your innovation layer on top, like how do we differentiate as an employee brand, as a value prop, the give and get. And so what happens is that some companies and cultures become a yes and culture. I want this and that extra pony or that puppy that you gave this subpopulation. And so you have to be really clear that it's not about equal, it's equitable, right? It's about like, what is the total value transfer we want to give to our employees? What's the care? What's the environment we want? And there's trade-offs. If you choose to be remote, you don't get the family picnic on the grounds unless you want to travel into that office, right? There's a trade-off you are making for your flexibility. So you can't have the picnic and the remote work and the flexibility. You're choosing a different path. And so, but yet the platform play is you must be productive. You must be a good employee. You must adhere to our rules of conduct, right? To work in our company. And so that's a platform play. I think for some organizations, they're unclear on that middleware, the nuance between this function versus that or this country. And you've got to be really succinct. And then you got to be clear on where you compete, differentiate on, right? So you can be an attractive place for talent to come to.
Me and Steven are just smiling in the background because we both know that that was going to be a clip. He's in the background typing, "This is so fire." And I agree with him. And so I like how you've broken this down, the platform play, the middleware, and the last one was the innovation layer. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And so something that you mentioned a few minutes ago was that part of your job right now with this culture work is finding those golden nuggets. And so I guess question one, how do you go about identifying those golden nuggets across a company of 15,000 employees? And then once you have like this menu or this huge list of golden nuggets, how do you break it out between platform play, middleware, and innovation?
Great question. So you have to touch that elephant in whatever tools you have, right? So you can look at how your employees describe you on social media, like on LinkedIn. So you can scrape what are the most common adjectives used to describe XYZ. Look at Glassdoor. You can look at those elements externally. What do they say? Internally can ask questions. So in your employee engagement survey, Stephen, that you love so much, what if you had just like 3 questions? Give me your top 3 words that describe our culture, the good and the not so good, right? So I can bifurcate. Like if everyone says we love our culture because everyone gets a puppy, right? I know puppies matter in our culture. That's a platform play. Everyone gets a puppy when you work for us. And then the thing's not so good is that we have puppies. I'm scared of dogs, right? Like you might see the darker shadow of the thing that some people love, or you might see nuance by region. And so you can slice and dice how they feel about the culture. You can also scrape and use AI, natural language, on the comments that employees give you on those surveys. You can also start sensing across the ecosystem. So I think about the employee journey from courting talent to onboarding. You have a perception of the company you're joining. And so I want to harness those emotions, those words that you have. Why did you apply at my company? Why did you accept my offer? How's your onboarding experience? And then if you have this long trough of lack of productivity, I don't have friends, it gives me an angle in which to fix culture, right? So now I'm going to make sure you have the right tools, the right onboarding buddy, the right support to get you going in your job. So I'll be sensing these gold nuggets and these opportunities across moments that matter. And then I'll look at it by function and I'll look at it by geo just to harness it. And then the elephant starts to come up. And then I test my elephant theory.
And so now we have our nuggets and we feel good about the nuggets because we've scraped multiple sources. We've tapped into the engagement survey. Maybe we do some focus groups at those moments that matter and get fresh words, the words of the employees like today, like in it. And so we have our list, we have the nuggets. And so then how as an HR team do you distill that down into kind of the prioritized list of things we're going to do?
All right. So tactically what I do is I map what we say and what we're elevating against what we've been saying. So are we congruent or not? So every company already has their value statement and their tenets. So I'm just going to do a map and see if we're in alignment or not. And we're not in alignment, I'm going to challenge us, do we want to be in alignment? So sometimes we have an aspirational aspect of our culture we want to pursue. And in my prior gig at LinkedIn, way back when I started doing this culture evolution work, we had a tenet called open, honest, and constructive. And in that, I asked the leadership team, I said, do you think we are open, honest, and constructive? And all 10 hands were raised. And I said, all right, how many of you do a performance review of some sort? This is early days. We were like 3,000 employees. We were young at the time. And, all 10 hands raised. They had some performance evaluation, but they had different flavors. And I asked if they had a rating, and all 10 hands raised. And I asked who communicates the rating to the employee, and only 1 hand raised. And so I crossed out open and honest and constructive from the tenets, from the culture. And my peers are like, what are you doing, Wadors? And I'm like, well, we're not open, honest, and constructive. We have a rating score. And my assumption is that rating score impacts my promotability, my comp, my bonus. You're not being open and honest with me, and you're going to be nicer to me in your words. I won't know there's a gap until it's too late. So let's just pretend that we don't believe in this. Let's just cross this out because we're not modeling it. And we had this great conversation like, but we want that. And the employees want that. And I said, then if you want that and the employees want it, let's build a path to that. And so that's what you do. So some of it is like, what's great, we amplify, we do this today. And those things we aspire to be better at because the employees deserve it and we believe in it. And then we create a path forward and then we measure those steps. And that's what every company needs to be thinking through. And I'll work, it's not just HR work. I work with the leaders, I work with marketing, I work with all the comms teams, all, the employees. Like it's a village that makes this come to life.
One of the moments that's always stuck with me was something that Darren Murph, the former head of remote at GitLab, said. And this is from an OG episode. He said, we've decoupled business results from place, but the next big unlock is decoupling business results from time. He called this time independence. And to get there, teams need to completely rethink how work happens. And so when I was reading through Atlassian's new report, The State of Teams 2025, that's all I could think about. That's the quote that kept coming to mind. They surveyed 200 Fortune 1000 execs and 12,000 knowledge workers to understand what the highest performing teams are doing differently. Spoiler alert, it's not about more meetings, more tools, or forcing everyone into one way of working. It's about putting a system into place, one that helps teams align on goals, plan together, and actually use their collective knowledge so that AI can help instead of overwhelming teams. This report is completely ungated, no email walls, no forms. So if you want to take a look, just click the link in the show notes and you'll get access to the full PDF. I love that approach. As a marketer, it almost makes me think of when you shut everything off on marketing to see what happens, and you immediately get all the questions of like, hey, actually, I want these things back on. And it's like, okay, like why? And so it's like almost like building the case for why you should be doing that thing versus not. And so yeah, that's genius. Genius way of getting everybody aligned on where you want to close the gaps. Something you said that caught my ear was that you're really working on the origin story, and I'm curious like how much the origin story plays into this culture work, and if that dictates at all like what you consider to be a golden nugget. So yeah, like how do you even go about constructing this origin story? Is this like a combination of what you're hearing from the founders and employees and customers? And is it are you completely changing the origin story or just like adding new elements to it that maybe weren't captured before? Like what all goes in to this storytelling?
So you're an archaeologist. You're going back in time. You're finding out why they founded the company. You're figuring out why they had their focus on X, Y, or Z. What problem were they trying to solve? What service they were trying to provide? And then how did they make their decisions? What framework did they begin to use to make decisions on people, on scale, on market, on quality, on cost, whatever those things are? And then if you pull your thread of your origin story from then, and you do these natural life cycle moments, you could do every 5 years, every 7 years, you could do it by revenue size. I look at Reid Hoffman's blitzscaling book, right? And startups to scale up like these, there's these natural evolution points that you want to look at and then say, what held true, right? What held true in these value sets? What held true in the purpose in the marketplace? Did they stay with the core and just expand the market? Did they create a market? That creation of a market takes courage, right? Conviction, it takes time. And so that's in the DNA of the organization, this courage to innovate. So how do you give courage to innovate again? Because what's really scary for companies is when you're successful, you don't want to screw up your success. So psychologically, you become more conservative, and that slows down innovation. And so being successful is almost your biggest threat out there, not your competition. And so how do you remind people that through iteration, through learning, through mistakes, through grit, through collaboration is how we became X. And these tenets of who we are must stay true today. Like we must take risks, we must learn, we must iterate, we must stay humble, we must stay curious, because that's how we got here. And if we want to get there where we think the opportunity lies, we'd be foolish not to go grab that and stay the course. Don't fear failure. Lean towards success. And that's the origin story will teach you, hopefully.
I love this origin story, and it putting my CEO hat on. It's a weird existence being an operator, former CEO, now more of a COO at the MPL, but also being a practitioner. And I was like chief people officer for my small startup. So I did all the people things. And one of the issues I think that CEOs and executives, like I don't think it's limited to CEOs, is when you talk about culture work or cultural transformation or cultural, whatever you want to call the body of work, is that it's kind of squishy, it's kind of nebulous. And as an operator and CEO, I don't like things I can't measure because I am being asked by everyone above me to measure results and to show that I have responsibly used shareholder dollars to create commercial value. And that becomes really hard. It can be hard with the culture topic. And so I'm curious, like, how have you teed this up with, how do you typically tee this up with your leadership teams? And how do you measure success? Like, at the end of the day, first, you got to get them to believe, like, we will be able to measure this and I will show results. And then you have to deliver those results. And so what's your playbook for that?
Man, you guys are tough. It, it depends on the scenario, honestly. So if you are finding hot spots in the organization where innovation is slowing down, the cost of development is going high, attrition is creeping up, you have a problem, right? And so you need to circle around all those elements and discern what is happening. What type of talent are you losing? Are you losing your top talent innovators? Why are they leaving? The long tenured employees? What's happening? So you're a little bit more of a detective about, do I have a problem? Why is the problem existing? And how long has it been creeping up on me that I didn't notice? So that's one way. The other way is realizing that as you go through these natural life cycles and the next stage of where you're going, say you're leading the market of something, you created a market niche of something, and then people are fast followers to you and your product or your service. Your sales force may not have grown up learning how to sell in a competitive market, right? So now you have an underdeveloped muscle there. You might have an underdeveloped muscle in product development because they didn't think about the PRD and how you get the requirements gathering from the marketplace and understand the differentiation against the competitor and or where you want to take your service or your product. So you have to be thinking about your organic growth. You have to be thinking about how the market is changing and shifting around you. And then you have to think about what are you reinforcing inside to make sure that you're growing the muscles that you need to keep growing, reinforcing it in your performance management, in your leadership attributes, in your onboarding and your hiring characteristics. All of that represents your culture. Like if people think culture is this nebulous thing, I laugh because it's culture manifests through every decision we make every day. It's how we set our goals. It's how we set our budget. It's how we treat employees. It's how we hire and fire and develop and expand. So all of that is measurable.
Yeah. I'm just thinking about, I'm thinking about the way that we operate as a two-person company and how that culture scales. Because one day we'd like for Modern People Leader to be maybe not a big business, but we'd like to have a team around us. And I think about the golden nuggets of our culture. And part of that is like having a system for everything, having like the right cadences for every function of our business. We have regular check-ins on the metrics. We have regular check-ins on the finances. We have a weekly sales meeting. We have client trackers. We have templates. We have everything.
That's your rigor. You have a rigorous culture, that you have accountability and rigor and ownership. Yeah. Those are the elements of culture, I feel.
We do daily stand-ups.
It's interesting just to kind of riff on this because, Pat, you mentioned something earlier that is one of my hot buttons that just really sends me over the edge. And that's the opposite of what you said. Yeah, you said congruence. And when a culture is incongruent or even a process, like an action, like you are telling me something, but your actions are showing something totally different, like that's a red alert to me. And I actually can't, my high D has to go in and intervene on that. And so, Daniel, I'm glad you're digging into this, Daniel, because a lot of what you're sharing, relates to us given we're so early in the culture building. Sorry, Daniel, back to you.
No, yeah. And when I think about the Modern People Leader, I think that's something that would be a platform play. We want these things to be true across teams. Every team should have set cadences in place. Every team should have rigorous tracking. But at the same time, there's some of the more fluffy stuff. I don't know how to describe Steven and I's sense of humor or the things that we enjoy doing. But it's fun. And I think that that's also important. And I know that that looks different for every team. And maybe that's more of the middleware. But yeah, it's just so interesting when you talk about culture because there's so much that goes into it. And like you said, it's every action and every behavior that people are making on a daily basis. And so,
Yeah, what
yeah,
you reinforce, right? Like you talked about your rigor and all that. Like that's, you're going to look for that in the candidates you hire as you expand your business. You're going to look for someone that has an operational mindset. You're going to have someone that understands the numbers, that believes in transparency and collaborates. Like I can already tell you the archetype. And so someone's highly creative that doesn't want to be bothered with repeatable, scalable systems. You'd be like, I like your creativity. Maybe you can talk to us every now and then. But they won't
yeah,
find their way into your culture long term.
yeah, that it'll be horrible for them. They're like, I don't want
Yeah.
to do all of this. And so, where would you say that you guys are on that journey right now? So you got there 6 months ago.
6 months. I'm touching the elephant. I am gathering data. So talk to me in 6 months and I'll have more answers for you. I can't give away everything. I'm still learning. My
And
answers will be wrong by nature.
And I feel like this is the, I guess, perfect segue into your book. But I've heard you mention Touch the Elephant a couple of times. Is this one of the fables or folk tales that was referenced in the book, or is this something that's separate from that?
No, it's in the book. So
Okay.
it's actually the first fable I talk about because I want people to understand that your perspective naturally is biased. It's based on your experiences and your lived beliefs, and be open that someone's lived a different life and had different experiences and different outcomes. And so if you lean into any problem or opportunity with curiosity and questions, you can potentially see the whole thing in front of you. And so I start with the elephant, the elephant and the blind men, and talk about, how they argue about they're touching a snake or a sail or a trunk or a barrel, and that it's really something much bigger and better. And once they start asking questions and understand it's a bigger thing, there's joy in that. And so I talk about Goldilocks, finding your just right fit, knowing what you don't like is just as important as what you do like. So try on the different chairs and the porridge and figure out things like that management style. I don't like it, or I like this. And if I ever become a leader, I want to emulate you, right? Like you start picking up things that work for you and your superpowers. And I talk about the tortoise and the hare. I talk about the three pigs. Like each of them have like these life lessons and personal stories and professional stories.
I'm so curious, like a person with all the experiences and knowledge that you have, you could have written a book probably about, there's no shortage of topics that you could possibly write a book on. But and I just purchased my copy like literally just now. Sorry, I haven't
I
read it.
thank
I
you.
like to read the books, but yeah. I always buy it. I'm sure like we've gotten PDFs and copies in the past, but I'm like, you know what? We should be buying these books and supporting our guests. And so I can't wait to read it. I'm a big believer in the power of storytelling. And so I'm just curious, like how, to me, this is about the art of storytelling and how that factors in to leadership. And so how did you narrow down to this particular topic for the book?
So when they approached me, which to me in of itself was just amazing. So Wiley called me up and they were like, "Hey, have you ever thought about writing a book?" And I'm like, "No." Like I've been asked, but no. And she was, "Well, would you write a book about HR?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "Why not?" And my answer is, and it stays true today, I learn from others. I stand on the shoulders of so many other people. I copy shamelessly. I give shamelessly. There's so many great theories out there. Like, who am I? Like I would feel like an imposter to create the book when there's so many amazing things out there on that subject. And it's a tough gig. And there's so many different flavors of this gig. And if someone wants my coaching, my mentoring, yeah, call me up, hit me up, right? But I will never say that I'm the subject matter expert on that and you should like take my book and put it on your shelf. And she was like, "Well, what would you write about?" And no one ever asked me that. And I'm like, "Oh no, I have to think about this now." And I really thought about it. And I'm like, the thing that gets me excited, because I'm dyslexic and I think in pictures, I'm a creative in my head and I tell stories. And when I was questioned about like, what do I stand for and where my beliefs come from, I'm a storyteller. And I believe in the neuro impact. When you tell a story from beginning, middle, and end, our brains fire up. We mirror, we put ourselves in the story, we learn faster, we get the moral lesson. I learn not to go in the woods. I learn to take care of X, Y, and Z through stories. And I tell and coach through stories. Like I have talked about Goldilocks for decades. I've created my own spreadsheet for Goldie. I visit Goldie every year. Goldie and I are like this. And so, and then when I think about being authentically me and understanding how I show up, I think about the emperor with new clothes. I don't want to be naked at work. So I'm going to ask for feedback. Like I want to create a healthy company, like my title alone is scary for people. I have to create a environment which you will come and tell me the truth. And so I channel my emperor with new clothes. I want to create a healthier village, a community. And so I'm thinking like, what if I share my stories that I've coached and mentored others for so long? And so I picked my top 8 fables and folktales and made a book out of it. And the first chapter is the power of storytelling. Stephen, I go into the neuroscience behind it and why stories unlock emotions and learnings and trust. And then I go into the fables. And it's a little bit of a workbook at the end too.
I can't wait to read it.
I hope you have fun. I cried when I wrote it. I laughed when I wrote it because it's like old friends to me. I'm like, oh, this is such a silly, fun book.
I wanted to cry just hearing you describe the book, because like that is more often people will hear Daniel's origin story because he is the brains behind the Modern People Leader. And there's no, like, I don't want to take away from that because Daniel is a genius and he had a genius idea. And here we are years later, like an overnight success. But for me, the origin story was a little different. And you said you're standing on the shoulders of giants. Like that got me right there. Like I am so fortunate. Ironically, for a lot of the programs that are being removed from companies today, I was a beneficiary, a direct beneficiary of these programs. And I had access to amazing leaders. And I am not here today doing the things I'm doing without those people in my life. And how do I pay that back? I pay that back by sharing. What is the most powerful way to share stories? That is my belief. And so you had me from the get-go.
So it's about.
I also just got the book, and I'm more of an 2 purchases. That's why you came onto the podcast, to sell two books to me and Stephen.
I'm excited. Gotta give me feedback.
I think I've talked about this book with Stephen, and I just saw it when I opened up my Audible app. It's a book called The Alchemist. Have y'all read that one?
Yes.
And I think about the stories that I've read where I've gotten like the most powerful lessons out of, and it's stories like that one. And yeah, there's something so powerful about folk tales, fables. And so I guess when you're interacting with your grandchildren, like which of these 8 stories are you the most excited to share with them? Like which lesson are you the most excited to deliver to them?
I think there's 2. I think it's Mulan and Goldie. Mulan for your authenticity. I mean, when I really embraced all of me, I smiled more, I laughed more, I made deeper friendships. I was better at work. Like life just feels good. Like what you see here is in the grocery store, in my kitchen. God love me, I am constant who I am now. It's so good. And I embrace people's uniqueness because that's so inviting to me. Like I'm not like you all and y'all aren't like me. And that just makes me so jazzed. And so I love people being really authentically them. And I want people to learn that lesson sooner. And then with Goldie, I worry about, my children and their children being taught to pursue your passion. Like, how do you know what you're great at until you stumble and know what you're not great at? Like, batting 500 is a world-class batting average, right? Like that means you fail half the time. So like life is about swing and a miss and a swing and a hit, right? And knowing how you approach life and that that experience, what you took away from it, is so incredibly important, and reflect on what I got to learn versus I failed. Look what I got to learn today. Like, lean into that. That to me is like empowering and just wonderful. And I don't want people to think they have to have it dialed in. It's not right.
On the Mulan story, Steven in the background was typing, "I'm literally there in my life right now," and it's so true. Like, I feel like there's something that I can learn from that, Steven. Steven's the type of person, you meet him and he'll tell you his whole life story. He'll be very open about anything and everything.
Open book.
And I'm definitely more guarded. And so it's funny, like when you hang out with me and Steven, he's like opening up, telling you things about his past. And people are like, "Steven, why are you telling me this?" He's like, "What? It's the truth."
It's because it's part of who
Why
I
not?
am today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I used to be more guarded because I was an introvert, and I got really bad feedback. There's a story in the book about this. I got terrible, terrible feedback. Like, they didn't know my values. I was out for myself. I was rude. I wouldn't say good morning. I was in my head. I wouldn't have lunch with them. I wouldn't do happy hours with them. And when I asked my coach, she was like, "Why do you think they think that about you, Pat?" She was like really nice to me. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe because I don't do all those things. I'm in my head. I'm a new mom. I'm nursing my baby. I can't have a beer and leave my husband alone with the babies. Like, I got to rush home. And she was, "Well, do they know that?" I'm like, "It's none of their business." She was like, "They're your employees. They should know what your values are. You should share a little bit about yourself." And I'm like, "Really?" And she's like, "Yes, that will set context." And so I'm like, okay. So I learned how to do it, and it made a difference. Like, I relaxed.
Yeah.
It was better for all of us.
Yeah. I think a lot of the people we have on the show are self-proclaimed perfectionists. And, we talked about this with Michelle from Strava, who we had on the show recently. And she talked about how, like, the first half of her career, she was like building like this perfect image of herself. And every day it was work to try to like maintain that image of this like badass, I think she called it like this badass like boss lady, and how it took some tragic events in her life to let that guard down and just be Michelle. And so, yeah, I think it's always good when we have a guest come on that's as successful as you and, doing all the things that you're doing, admit that it's okay and it's actually better if you show that authentic version of yourself. And so, I guess the only last question I have for you, and sorry, Stephen, were you going to say something?
No, I was just feeling this conversation, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, if we're, sticking with the real talk theme, Mav really wanted me to ask you about this. She had a question she wanted me to ask you.
Wait, first, who's Mav? I think
So-
we know who she's amazing. We know who she is.
So Mav and Pat have worked together for, I'm going to get this wrong, but I mean, y'all have worked together for like 10 plus years. Is that right?
20
like
plus years.
20 plus years. Oh my
I think
gosh.
that qualifies as your ride or die, Pat. Like your work ride or die, right? Like she's just with you.
She's pretty, yeah. Yeah. She was an intern at my first gig as head of HR. That's when we met at Align Technology, and our paths kept doing this together. And now she's my chief of staff, and she helped me with the book. So you'll see an illustration of Mav drawn by the illustrator of her in the book. Mav's pretty special.
And if I had to guess, she probably knows you just as well as anybody else in your life.
Oh, yeah. Deeply.
And so she told me that I needed to ask you for parenting advice as a first-time dad. And so I'm curious, like any words of wisdom for me?
You will be perfectly imperfect as a dad. Think in terms of not an hour or a day or a week, but think in sprints of months and quarters and years. So my kid may not see a veggie today or tomorrow, but she might see it this week. And that's good enough, right? Like, don't set your bar to perfection. You will never be happy, and it'll reflect in the family vibe. Know that you're doing your best. And then as they get older, what I learned to do is to create a bat phone for my kids. So I worked the entire time. My husband worked from home, and they were always wondering where mommy was. And so I created a bat phone, and they got a phone pretty young in age, I hate to admit, but it only dialed me and my husband. So if they were running late at school or camp or something, they could reach us. But as they got older, I told them, but the phone is really a bat phone. It's not a normal phone. I'm like, Mommy, what's that? I said, here's the deal. If you text me or call me once, I know to call you on my break. Like you're my first call. But if you call me back to back, the phone turns into a bat phone and I must at all cost answer you immediately. Like there's no calling back. I'm just going to answer this call because you need mommy. So you get a bat phone, use it carefully because mommy's got a job. But if you need me, don't worry about anything. They're like, okay. And I promise you every year, my kids tested the bat phone just to see if I'd really pick up the bat phone at least once. And one time my son called me and it was my first week at Align Technology. This is probably why I've told you this story. And I wanted to be perfect in this board presentation on our bonus payouts. And usually I cut and paste a spreadsheet because of my dyslexia, but this time I typed it to make it look pretty. And I transposed the numbers, decreased the CEO's bonus payout by quite a bit. In the boardroom, it got pointed out by the CFO. Pat, did you realize you just reduced Tom's bonus by X dollars? And I looked at him and in my head, I had a whole bunch of words and I just took a deep breath. I said, well, I didn't think he performed as well as I thought he should have the year before, but if you want to put it back where it was, go ahead. Hate's going to joke. And then confessed that I was dyslexic and apologized and realized I'm going to start cutting and pasting. And thank you for pointing that out. Right then the bat phone rang. And it was my son at a new school. And I'm like, oh no, slow motion. And I'm like, what do I do? And it took me half a second to realize I have to answer the phone. So I picked up the phone so he could hear me. And I told the board, I said, you must excuse me. I have what I call a bat phone with my children. I hope he's dying. I will be right back, but I promise to pick up no matter what was happening in my life because they're most important. So I excused myself, answered the phone. My son's bawling. He didn't get picked for the basketball team. He has no friends. He doesn't know where his dad is and starting to get dark. He went into full panic mode. Talked him off the ledge, told him we'll put him into basketball camp. We'll get him up and running. Daddy's down the street. I promise you he's right there. Daddy pulled right up. Dad was fine. Ben became fine. I walked in. I said, thank you for that moment, that commercial break. My son didn't make the basketball team. Sorry about that. He was devastated. He's in a new school and he feels really lonely, but he's good now. So thank you. And this gentleman goes, Pat, if it'll help him, I'll take him to a Warriors game. I know how important sports are to young men. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Right. And I didn't realize it was Jacob. He was the owner of the Warriors. So because he loved my bat phone, he offered to take my son to a game. So live your values, Daniel. Create a bat phone and don't sweat the day or the hour. Have a longer term view of life.
All right, so MPL Live Boston was pretty big for us. We sold 90 tickets. We had an NPS of 100, so perfect NPS, up from 82 at our first event in Austin, and it ended up being the biggest MPL Live that we've done so far. And so now we're going to head to San Francisco, and we think that it's going to be even bigger. Because one, SF is our second biggest market, and two, it's home to some of the most iconic guests that we've had on the show. People like Brandon Samet, Debbie Shotwell, AJ Thomas, Q Hamarani, Andrew Bartlow. I mean, I could list off probably another 4 or 5. And so we're super pumped to be doing this one in San Francisco. We love the city. And so here's the plan. MPL Live San Francisco is going to be happening on Thursday, June 5th from 2 to 6 p.m. in downtown SF. More details on the venue coming very soon. Tickets are going to be $99 for early bird. We're expecting 100 plus HR leaders this time. And just like Boston, there's going to be a mix of structured convos and unstructured networking. And we're going to be doing a live podcast with some badass CPOs. We haven't announced the speaker list yet, but it's pretty exciting. And for the people that have never been to an MPL Live, I'm just going to read off some of the fire one-liners from MPL Live Boston. One that comes to mind is from Carmel Galvin when she said, "Stop treating employee surveys like your Oura ring." Like that one, that one hit pretty close to home for me because I would obsess over my Oura ring scores for probably a good 6 to 8 months. Or when Stacy Ritchie from Smart Cat dropped, stop asking for headcount and start asking if AI can do it. And so these are the kinds of insights that you're going to get at an MPL Live. They're a bit longer episodes than the ones that you would get here, but the benefit of that is there's going to be, multiple Q&As throughout the episode, and we're going to go much deeper than we can go in some of these 60-minute episodes. And so if this sounds like your vibe, it's a super low pressure way to meet some good people, have some real conversations with people leaders in the San Francisco area, and there's going to be a lot of energy in the room. These events are a lot of fun. And so yeah, tickets are live. Go buy them now with the early bird pricing, and I hope to see you there.
I am so glad that Mav asked us to add that to the outline and throw you a little curveball at the end. And I just can't believe that we're at that time. There's so much that we could keep talking to you about, Pat. It's always an absolute joy. We're not done yet, but we do need to turn the corner and bring the conversation to a close. In between right now and then, we have 2 more traditions to get through. The next one is what we call rapid fire questions. Same set of questions. I think we've definitely mixed them up since November 2023.
Yeah, they're a little bit different now.
And so I'm excited to hear your responses. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. All right. First question. What's one piece of advice that you'd give someone starting in HR today?
Ask a million questions. Learn.
That's great advice. If your team gave you a superpower nickname, what would it be?
Mary Poppins.
Oh, such a quick response.
We did say rapid fire. If you could steal one strategy from another company, what would it be? I love this question. Any strategy, not doesn't have to be a people strategy.
Any strategy. What's coming to mind is top athletic team building strategies. How do you build a top performing team? Mm.
Last one. Who do we need to have on the show next?
Christy Pamianki.
Ooh.
Love it. I don't know her, and we'll have to check her out, and we would be honored. Any friend of Pat is an instant friend of ours.
Ask her about her Harry Potter room. That's all I have to know.
Perfect. Oh my God. And that brings us, that's it. That brings us to the end. Our final tradition, we call it one word close. It can be a word or a few words, just as we reflect on the last hour and change, how we want to wrap the conversation up. And we prefer for our guests to go first.
Joyful.
I'm going to say find your dance partners.
I'm going to go with storytelling, and I can't wait to read your book, Pat. And if our audience wanted to, what's the best place to learn more about the book? Is there a website, or should they just go to Amazon like I did? How can we learn more?
So wadors.com. We actually created a website for this, thanks to Mav. And Amazon.
Shout out, Mav.
You can find it on Amazon, and it's audiobook too.
Amazing. Well, it's been such a joy to interview you again, Pat. We are so fortunate, and we're just blessed to be able to do what we do. This is by far the best. I think we said this right before we were recording, that this is the best part of my week, and it's totally exceeded the expectations I had. So great to see you again and to have a chat. So thanks for joining.
Thank you both. You made this so much fun. Thank you for making my brain fire up.
Yes.
Likewise. All right. Have a good week, guys. Bye.
Bye.
You too.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Modern People Leader. We really, really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star rating. It would mean the world to us. and connect with us on LinkedIn. We want to know what you think about the show, and you can find links to both of our profiles in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and see you on the next episode.